The Warden's deal. The side corridor echoed with Jensen's footsteps, Ramirez's ragged breathing, and King's muttered curses as they dragged the wounded Warden through the smoke. The mob's roars faded behind them, swallowed by the din of the riot, but Jensen knew they hadn't escaped. Reaper's wolves were everywhere. They ducked into an abandoned storage room, the flickering light from a burning mattress seeping through the doorway. Jensen shoved King against the wall, his bloodied cuffs clanking against the pipes. Her pistol stayed trained on his chest. "You're going to talk," she said, her voice low, sharp. "No riddles. No smug speeches. The truth, all of it. Who's behind this network? Who else is pulling the strings?" King's lips curled into a bloody smile. "You think you've cornered me, detective? You're the one cornered. You're bleeding time. By morning, the state will bulldoze this place to ash, and every file, every body, every secret will burn with it." Jensen pressed the barrel harder against his chest. "Not unless you give me something I can take out of here alive." Ramirez slumped onto a crate, clutching his leg, his eyes never leaving King. "If you're so untouchable, why did you run when we showed up in the control room? Why didn't you just let your wolves do your dirty work?" For the first time, a flicker of unease crossed King's face. He shifted against the pipes, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Because the wolves don't answer to me anymore." Jensen frowned. "Reaper?" King nodded once, his eyes cold. He wasn't supposed to survive this long. Bennett was meant to keep him in check. But when you killed Bennett, you changed the balance. Reaper sees himself as king now, and if he seizes this prison completely, the network will suffer. Chaos is useful, detective, but too much chaos breaks the machine. The admission sent a chill through Jensen's veins. The Warden wasn't worried about the lives lost, guards, inmates, innocents. He was worried about the business. "What machine?" she pressed. "You keep talking about the network. Spell it out." King leaned back, his smirk returning despite the blood dripping from his side. "Fine. You want the truth? Blackridge is just one piece. A node. We take shipments from suppliers who don't exist on paper, move them through prisons where no one looks too closely, and sell them back to the world at 10 times the price. Guns, drugs, even people. The world thinks these walls keep danger out. In reality, they keep the market safe." Jensen's chest tightened. It was worse than she imagined, worse than Cruz had hinted. "And how far does it go?" King's eyes glittered. "Farther than you can touch. Senators who need their campaigns funded. Contractors who need wars fueled. Cartels who need weapons laundered. You think shutting me down ends this? You'd be swatting a fly while 1,000 more circle the room." The room went still, the weight of his words pressing down on them like the smoke above. Ramirez swore under his breath. "Jesus, this isn't just a prison riot. It's a global pipeline." King smiled faintly. "Now you see why Cruz had to die. He wasn't exposing corruption in one prison. He was threatening to unravel billions of dollars. Entire governments would rather see him in the ground than risk that." Jensen's grip on her pistol trembled. She wanted to shoot him, silence his smug voice forever. But part of her knew he was telling the truth. His arrogance wasn't just ego, it was the confidence of a man who knew he was backed by powers untouchable. Before she could speak, the door burst open. Smoke and screams poured in as a group of inmates stormed the room, weapons raised. Their leader, a thin, sharp-eyed man with gang tattoos across his scalp, froze when he saw King cuffed against the wall. "The Warden," he hissed, eyes alight with fury. "Hand him over." Jensen swung her pistol toward the group. "Back off." But the man only laughed, his voice high and jagged. "You don't get it, lady? That man is the reason half of us are in the ground. We're taking what's owed." He raised his weapon, but King spoke first, his voice smooth and commanding even in chains. "Wait." The gang leader hesitated, caught off guard. King's eyes bored into him. "You think Reaper cares about you? He'll bleed you dry and leave you to rot. But me? I can make you rich. I can make you powerful. You free me now, and I'll put you at the top of the food chain." Jensen's stomach turned. Even chained, even bleeding, the Warden was making deals. The gang leader licked his lips, his eyes darting between Jensen's gun and King's bloodied face. The room was electric with tension. "Don't listen to him," Jensen snapped. "He'll use you, then kill you like he killed Cruz." But King leaned forward, his voice a serpent's whisper. "Cruz was a fool. You're smarter. Join me and I'll make you untouchable." The leader's grip tightened on his weapon. Ramirez shifted painfully, his pistol rising. The decision teetered on a knife's edge. Then the leader lunged, not at King but at Jensen. The room exploded in violence. Jensen fired, dropping one of the gang members, while Ramirez dragged himself behind cover. King ducked, his cuffs clanging against the pipes, a twisted grin spreading across his face as chaos unfolded around him. Bullets tore through the storage room, crates splintering, sparks flying. Jensen fought desperately, her pistol barking again and again, each shot a gamble in the haze of smoke and blood. When the last body hit the ground, the room fell silent again. Jensen's chest heaved, her pistol clicking empty. Ramirez groaned, clutching his side. King chuckled softly. See? Even in chains I command loyalty. Imagine what I could do unshackled. Jensen stared at him, her rage boiling. He wasn't wrong. The network didn't need weapons to survive. It thrived on men like him, men who could twist fear into obedience, chaos into profit. She reloaded her pistol, stepping closer, the barrel inches from his forehead. You're not walking out of here as a king. You're walking out as evidence. King's grin faltered just slightly, and for the first time Laura Jensen saw it, the faintest flicker of fear in his eyes. The next, the Blood Pact. Detective Laura Jensen kept her pistol steady on King, her finger itching on the trigger. For all his arrogance, for all his talk of networks and power, she had finally seen it, the crack in his mask, the flicker of fear. But he wasn't finished talking. Men like Harold King never were. You want to know how this all started? He said, his voice low and raspy, blood dripping from his side. Fine. You've earned that much. This place, this empire, it wasn't built on paperwork and politics. It was built on blood. Mine. Bennett's. Cruz's. Jensen narrowed her eyes, but she didn't interrupt. If King wanted to confess, she'd let him damn himself with his own words. It was 10 years ago, King began, his gaze distant. Blackridge was already a pit of violence, but it was still just a prison then. Inmates killing each other for scraps, guards looking the other way. Chaos without purpose. Waste. He licked his lips, savoring the memory like a fine cigar. Then came Bennett. Fresh transfer from another facility. Brutal, ambitious, and hungry. He wasn't the type to waste time on rules. He came to me one night after a riot, blood still on his boots, and said, "Warden, you're sitting on a gold mine. You just don't know how to dig." Jensen's stomach twisted. She could picture it. Bennett, younger but no less dangerous, already plotting to twist Blackridge into something far darker. I listened, King continued, and he showed me. Guards already smuggled cigarettes, drugs, even women for the right price. But Bennett, he had contacts, cartels, militias. He said we could move more than scraps. Guns, heroin, and no one would ever suspect a prison. Who watches the watchers? His grin widened despite the blood soaking his shirt. So we struck a deal. He'd handle the shipments, make the connections. I'd provide the cover, the paperwork, the silence. Together we built the pipeline. Together we turned Blackridge into more than a cage. We turned it into a marketplace. Ramirez groaned from where he leaned against the wall. You're admitting to murder, smuggling, treason. You think bragging saves you? King's eyes gleamed. No, officer. I'm admitting to genius. You think Cruz was the first to try and break the pact? He wasn't. Over the years, plenty of men, guards, inmates, even outsiders, thought they could expose us. But Bennett and I, we made sure they were all forgotten. That was our blood pact. No loose ends. Ever. Jensen's grip on her pistol tightened. So Cruz threatened to expose you and you killed him. King shook his head slowly, almost pityingly. Cruz was different. He wasn't just a snitch, he had proof. He got his hands on ledgers, contacts, even a shipment schedule. I still don't know how. But he was planning to trade it all for his freedom. The cartel wanted him dead. The gangs wanted him dead. And Bennett? He wanted him gone before Cruz dragged me down with him. Jensen's voice was cold as ice. So you gave the order. King's smirk returned. I didn't have to. That was the beauty of it. Bennett knew the pact. He knew what had to be done. Cruz died in the yard, choking on his own blood, because he forgot the one rule of Blackridge. Silence keeps you alive. The room was heavy with the weight of his confession. The flickering firelight painted his face in shadows, making him look less like a man and more like the devil himself. Jensen lowered the pistol slightly, her mind spinning. Everything Cruz had risked, everything Dalton had died for, it was all rooted in this blood pact between two men, King and Bennett. A pact that had turned Blackridge into a graveyard of secrets. But before she could respond, the walls trembled. A low rumble rolled through the prison, followed by the sharp crack of gunfire and the boom of another explosion. Dust rained from the ceiling and the storage room door rattled on its hinges. "They're coming," Ramirez muttered, wincing. Jensen grabbed King by the collar, hauling him to his feet. "We're finishing this conversation outside." King laughed weakly. "Outside? Detective, you're not making it out of here. Not with Reaper loose. Not with my men still watching. You're carrying the weight of a dying empire, and it'll crush you before you ever see daylight." She shoved him forward, pistol pressed to his back. "Then I'll crawl out if I have to." They pushed into the corridor, smoke and fire curling through the air. The riot was peaking, packs of inmates clashing with guards in brutal hand-to-hand combat, rifles cracking in the distance, screams echoing off concrete. And then they saw him. Reaper. The giant towered at the end of the hall, his shirt soaked in sweat, his muscles glistening in the firelight. His wolves fanned out behind him, armed and eager. His eyes locked on King and his grin stretched wide. "Well, look at this," he bellowed, his voice booming. The king himself in chains, dragged through his own kingdom like a dog. The mob roared with laughter, pounding pipes against the walls. Reaper took a step forward, pointing a blood-stained hand at Jensen. "Hand him over, detective. This ain't your fight. You give me King and maybe, just maybe, I let you walk." King chuckled, even cuffed and bleeding. "You see, detective? This is what happens when you let animals off the leash. They think they're rulers. They think they're men." Reaper's eyes darkened. He slammed his fist into the wall, cracking the concrete. "I'm more man than you ever were, old dog. You bled us for years, but tonight we bleed you dry." The mob surged closer, their chants growing louder. Jensen raised her pistol, her voice steady. "He doesn't belong to you, Reaper. He belongs to the world. To every victim outside these walls. You tear him apart and his crimes get buried with him." Reaper tilted his head, his grin never fading. "Buried or avenged. Either way I win." The corridor was a tinderbox ready to ignite. Jensen stood between a wounded king and a rising wolf, both symbols of the Blood Pact that had destroyed Blackridge. And she knew in that moment that whichever way this broke, the prison, the network, even her own life, nothing would ever be the same again. Next, the escape attempt. The corridor was a war zone of firelight and shadows. Detective Laura Jensen stood between two predators, Warden Harold King, cuffed and bleeding but smirking like the devil himself, and Reaper, the towering inmate whose wolves howled for vengeance behind him. "Hand him over," Reaper growled, his voice shaking the concrete. "Give me the king and maybe I let you crawl out alive." Jensen's pistol stayed raised, though her hands trembled from exhaustion. "He's not yours to kill," she said. "He belongs in court. He belongs to the truth." The mob behind Reaper roared with laughter, pounding pipes and rifles against the walls. "Court?" one man jeered. "Ain't no court in here, badge." Reaper grinned, wide and cruel. "This is court, detective. And I'm the judge." Before Jensen could answer, a deafening boom shook the prison. The ground trembled, dust showering from the ceiling. Inmates and guards alike paused, stunned. A second explosion followed, louder than the first. Ramirez, leaning heavily against the wall, his pistol shaking in his bloodied hands, whispered, "The gates? They're trying to blow the gates." The realization hit Jensen like ice water. Reaper's men weren't just rioting. They were staging an escape. The weapons from the freezer, the drugs from the kitchen. They weren't just tools of control. They were currency. Reaper was going to buy freedom with blood. Reaper's grin widened as if he'd read her mind. "That's right. While you chase ghosts and play detective, my wolves are blowing holes in your walls. By dawn, Blackridge won't be a prison anymore. It'll be ashes, and we'll walk out as kings." The mob howled in agreement, a savage chorus of rage and triumph. Jensen's chest tightened. If the inmates broke through, hundreds of killers, armed and fueled by hatred, would flood into the surrounding town. Families, children, civilians. They'd be slaughtered. "You can't let them through," she said, her voice raw. "They'll kill everyone." Reaper tilted his head, almost amused. "Everyone? No, not everyone. Just enough to remind the world what happens when you lock men away like dogs. Tonight, the cage opens." The mob surged forward, weapons raised. Jensen fired, dropping the first man. Ramirez fired too, his shot wild but enough to make the wolves hesitate. "Move!" Jensen shouted, dragging King by the collar. They bolted down the corridor, Reaper's roar echoing behind them. The prison erupted around them. Explosions boomed in the distance, followed by the crackle of automatic fire. Inmates screamed triumphantly as sections of the outer wall collapsed in smoke and rubble. The scent of burning gasoline filled the air. Jensen, Ramirez, and King stumbled into the east yard, and froze. was hell. The wall was gone, blown open in 2 places. Smoke and fire poured through the breach. Inmates swarmed toward it like ants, rifles slung across their backs, sacks of drugs and cash clutched in their hands. Guards lay dead or dying in the dirt, their blood soaking into the gravel. And beyond the breach, through the smoke, Jensen saw headlights. Trucks. Waiting. "My God," Ramirez whispered. "They planned this. They've got transport waiting outside." King chuckled, even bleeding and bound. "Of course they do. Did you think Reaper was acting alone? He's got handlers. Cartels, militias, buyers. They're waiting to collect their prize. Blackridge isn't collapsing, it's delivering." Jensen's pistol dug into his back as rage burned through her. "Shut up and move." They pushed into the yard, weaving between rioters. A bullet whizzed past Jensen's ear. Another inmate lunged with a knife, but she shot him point blank, his body crumpling at her feet. Ramirez hobbled beside her, firing at shadows, his face twisted in agony. Reaper appeared behind them, his massive frame rising above the mob. His roar carried over the chaos. "The badge has the Warden. Stop them." Dozens of inmates turned, their eyes burning with fury. Jensen and Ramirez were swallowed in a storm of fists, blades, and gunfire. Jensen fought like an animal. She fired until her pistol clicked empty, then swung it like a club. She slammed the butt into one man's face, kicked another in the knee, grabbed a fallen baton and cracked it across a jaw. Blood spattered her clothes, her arms screaming with exhaustion. Ramirez went down once, dragged under by 2 inmates, but Jensen yanked him back up, firing a stolen revolver into their chests. And all the while, King laughed. Even bound, even bleeding, he laughed. "You see, detective? You can't stop it. This isn't a riot. It's liberation." The breach loomed closer. Jensen could see the trucks idling beyond the smoke, their engines rumbling, their drivers masked. Inmates poured toward them, throwing duffel bags into the beds, climbing aboard like soldiers boarding transports. If they made it through, the world outside was finished. Ramirez collapsed against a barricade, his face pale, his leg useless. "Go," he shouted. "Take him and go." Jensen grabbed his arm. "Not without you." But Ramirez shoved her away, his eyes blazing. "I'm dead weight. You've got to stop them. Don't let this spill out." Tears stung her eyes, but she knew he was right. She hauled King forward, shoving her pistol into his back. "You're ending this. You're stopping them." King's grin twisted. "You think they'll listen to me now? No, detective. I'm not their master anymore. I'm their currency." The words hit like a hammer. King wasn't leading the escape, he was the bargaining chip. The cartels waiting outside wanted him alive. That was why Reaper hadn't killed him yet. "Then I'll make sure you never leave this yard," Jensen hissed. Reaper's voice thundered behind them. "She's at the breach. Take them alive." The wolves closed in, the breach ahead glowing with fire, the outside world just beyond. Jensen tightened her grip on King, her pistol steady despite the chaos. She had one chance, one desperate gamble, to end this before Blackridge spilled into the world. And as the flames licked higher and the wolves surged forward, Detective Laura Jensen realized she was standing on the knife edge of history. The prison wasn't just collapsing, it was breaking free.